Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the weekend wrap up show. It is January 18th, 2025. I'm David Thomas, and Mr. Josh Blevins is sitting across from me. Josh has done all the work, and I get to watch as he and make and throw jabs at you while you're making the reports on what else happened this week. But
Yeah,
I know you've got a lot to talk about this morning.
there's a lot going on in Shelbyville and Bedford County. There is,
Yes.
and we've hit the ground running this year.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. Before we hit this week's ground running,
yeah,
let's hear a word from our sponsor, Dennis Young Insurance.
yeah.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 19.
All righty, Josh, why don't you just hop in and start talking about what else happened, starting with Monday?
Let's jump right in. Yeah, full week. I did looks like 5 meetings, and that's not counting side meals and breakfast
Right.
and coffee. So there's no telling how many places I was at. I was at a lot of meetings this week. Big ones though. Monday, pre-planning meeting for the city. This is the meeting before the meeting where all the items that'll be on the February Planning Commission agenda were discussed. Honestly, I think because of the way the cycle falls and the holidays and stuff, this was the shortest pre-planning agenda that I had seen since I've been going to pre-planning, which isn't that long. But it was, I want to say under 10 items, but man, a couple of them were big and a couple of them are got a lot of people talking. And we'll go ahead and start right at the big one, which was the first one discussed. This was the first review of the possible waste transfer station site plan. This is the possible waste transfer station that is still up for discussion at city council level. It's going in the industrial area over close to the high school. If you're sitting on the bleachers at the high school football stadium there at Shelbyville Central, you can see this location. It's next to there's that metal recycling place
Right.
that offloads their metal onto trains and stuff there. It's kind of over adjacent to that. As far as from the pre-planning side of things, they went over the site plan. They'll send some comments back to the developer. But the key at this meeting was, and the whoever engineer or developer in charge of this site plan was there, they said that they were told they cannot move forward to planning unless the zoning ordinance changes get approved by the city council. And that's the big thing that's hanging out there right now. I did, because I'm one of the 6 votes on this, I did a ton of research this week, last weekend. I started online with TDEC permits, and I also looked at the TDEC permits for all the waste transfer stations in the surrounding counties. I went and met with our current solid waste director, head of our public works, Buck, for a couple hours this week. I talked with Mark Clanton, which is our county public works. He's our highway superintendent, but he's also over solid waste on the county. Just trying to gather as much information as I could because we've got to make some kind of decision on this going forward. Some of the concerns that I still have just looking at it is location-wise. If we had the option, which they didn't give us this choice, but if I had the option, I would have put this outside the city limits in the county on a bigger parcel of land.
Right.
What I found looking at all the ones surrounding us, which is there's one outside of Manchester, there's one in Fayetteville. There are 2 currently either in planning or under construction in Murfreesboro. And in all of these cases, they sit on larger parcels of land surrounded by trees. They're actually when Fayetteville and Manchester were built, the TDEC regulations were more stringent. You had to have a 100 to 200 foot tree buffer around the whole property,
Right.
Just to kind of shield it from, surrounding
Hide it.
whatever. Yeah,
Hide it.
kind of hide it a little
Hide
bit.
it, yeah.
So kind of hide it a little bit. And Murfreesboro, who is not under that regulation anymore, and they're obviously more densely populated than we are, they still have put their the one that was approved, and I've not seen any activity on it, but they got one approved in 2019. It was going to go in an old abandoned rock quarry. So there was nothing around it. And the one that they're currently building for Rutherford County to use to transport their trash once their landfill fills up, they're putting it like right in the middle of where the landfill is. So it's surrounded by trash already.
Maybe this is a dumb question.
Yeah.
But I know there's people out there thinking if there's transfer stations at all these locations, transfer station sounds to me like it's more of a junction point for trash.
It is.
Rather than a collection point, which it doesn't collect. You're getting it from other places, and it's coming from other places.
Right.
Why so many transfer stations in such a small area? Do we have that much trash to handle? I mean, it seems like to me if Fayetteville has one, if Murfreesboro has one, if Marshall County has one, if other counties have one, couldn't multiple counties benefit from one? Or you just got to have one in every county now?
You don't necessarily have to have one in every county. The doing some research on it, seems like 30 minutes or less is your goal. You want to be able to get,
to the landfill.
Well, no, 30 minutes or less from wherever the trash gets picked up to the transfer station. So, for instance, the one in Estill Springs, which is the closest one to us, it looked like to me on the map. You don't drive a big truck there and bring the trash. You drive the trash truck that just picked up the trash from people's houses. So if you're out on a route with a trash truck,
you're going there
and it fills up.
I got you.
You got to drive all the way to wherever this transfer station is, and then drop off your trash with whatever line of traffic and people there are. Drive back, get on your route, and keep picking up your trash. So it has to be in a close proximity.
Benefits to the city of Shelbyville would be short travel. I mean, you're here. You've got it right here.
You're in the city. Same for the county.
The question becomes, what are the cons? That's a pro. What are the cons? And that's what you're
that's what we're trying to decide. Do the pros outweigh the cons? And the biggest pro overall is we've got this new contract with the ISWA. They're going to charge us $58 and change a ton, which we were told at the most recent meeting that the council had, if we don't accept this way of disposing of our trash and were to use our current method. Our current method is we have a city transfer station already and we have our own trucks. But if we continue to drive our trash where we're taking it now, which is the Lewisburg landfill, because our contract will be ended, they no longer have to honor our current contract rate. And we were told our tonnage rate would go up to, I believe it's $89 a ton.
Okay. I think everybody needs to understand that this is not the city of Shelbyville building a transfer station. This is a private business.
This is a private business that's under contract with the ISWA, which they represent us and a number of surrounding counties, including Tullahoma and some of those other ones I mentioned, Fayetteville and all of them. So we all kind of do this as a group collectively to save money so that the city of Shelbyville doesn't have to get a contract. Bedford County doesn't have to get a contract. Tullahoma doesn't have to get a contract. We have this, this kind of organization that handles it for us.
Okay, so it is a private business. So that will maybe help people understand this is not our city talking about building it.
Yeah, we didn't.
You have to approve the zoning.
We have to approve the zoning is all we're being asked to approve. So, and obviously the downside if we were not to, and we had to truck it further, we had to get a higher tonnage rate is that money doesn't magically come out of thin air, then you're talking some kind of a tax increase, and nobody wants a tax increase. So.
And that would be because we have to pick the trash up. We have to take it and dispose of it, and it costs money to do that.
It costs money to do that.
That's the extent of it. Our government is not responsible once it gets into a transfer station if it goes there. That company is going to handle it from that point.
From that point on, and that's the contract that that the ISWA has signed and that we would be under at that point if we accept the zoning again and allow it.
Sorry for the elementary questions and thinking here because a lot of people just don't understand what's going on.
Right, and there was a little bit of confusion sometimes, I think, transfer station versus landfill as well. At this location, semi-close to the high school there, the trash will never live there more than a few hours. It's going to come in a trash truck. It's going to go on the floor. They're going to load it with a front-end loader onto a big semi-truck. They'll put a tarp over top of it in that truck. And in this case, this particular company, they're hauling it all the way to Alabama. But so it won't even end up in a Tennessee
Make no bones
landfill.
about it. So. There's going to be trash there 24/7.
Overnight, there should not be. So that's
Nothing in the building overnight.
Nothing is allowed in the building overnight. At
Okay.
the end of every shift, they have to actually hose down the floor is the requirement.
Very good to
so,
know.
Yeah, so it gets hosed down. Nothing in the building. Most that could be on the property overnight is if they get to the end of a work shift and they've got a trailer that didn't get completely filled, they can put a tarp over it and park it outside. And I'm hoping that's one of the things we can look at in our zoning is hopefully we can keep them limited to having one of those on site overnight.
Yeah.
Would be my preference if we
Okay.
can. So
where do you think this stands right now, Josh? Being on the council,
yeah,
you've
where it
gotta-
stands, there's a special called meeting on. It's not this coming week; it's the following week. I believe it's the 28th is the date. Where at noon the council is going to meet again with all the hopefully with the companies that are doing this, and then also with our solid waste director, our public works director, and kind of get all the information out there so that all of us on the council have all the information so we can make an informed decision. And if anyone out there has more information or wants to give feedback to the council, all our emails and everything are right on the City of Shelbyville website. We always are, looking to hear from
Right.
constituents for
Right.
sure. So, but this one, this was what I told Buck when I met with him this week. He lives in this world all the time. He's our,
Right.
solid waste director, our public works director. He knows all this. Us on the council, until a week and a half ago, I didn't give trash another thought other than I threw it in my blue bin
Yeah.
and stuck it out by the road Wednesday
Right.
morning.
It's very
So,
convenient, isn't it?
yeah, it's very convenient right now. So I'm not an expert and nor as much information as I can gather in 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not going to become an expert on solid waste in 2 or 3 weeks. There's just no way. So in some respects, we've got to rely on his expertise to help us in making this decision. But on the other hand, on the council, we are the ones that have to actually, in the end of the day, we got to be the ones that vote on it. So we have to get some level of comfort with what we're voting
And you
on.
also
So-
have to have some input from your constituents.
from the constituents as well, because
So-
this is not some decisions maybe you could go in 2 or 3 years reverse yourself or something could change.
Yeah,
Once
this
this
is not.
decision's made,
Okay.
at a minimum, this affects how trash is handled in Bedford County for at least 10 years. And really, there's 2 extensions available on the end of this contract. This is probably a 20-year decision on how trash will travel through the city and the county for the next 20 years. So,
Okay, just as a citizen
Yeah.
sitting here again with an elementary thought process.
right.
All right, I have to decide. Okay, the pros and cons are there.
Right.
What does it mean to me as a citizen that sets my trash out every day to get it picked up?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do I want to end up paying higher property taxes because we have to haul it to a different place, which
Right.
could create a tax increase?
Sure.
Or do I want it here in Bedford County, here in the city of Shelbyville city limits, next to the high school, to where a lot of other trash that's going to be coming in with it, not just mine. Okay.
Right.
It's a junction point. It won't sit overnight. And it has regulations about how they clear it out, but it's a point for other big trucks to come pick it up, haul it away.
Yeah.
So it's basically adding a step in our process now, and it's in the city limits of Shelbyville. Do
Yeah.
I want that, or do I want to pay a little bit more property taxes down the road? Is that an elementary way
That's
of looking
pretty
at it?
close. And the other option would be too, and I know this was brought up, I think, a couple of years ago and really went nowhere. The way a lot of cities handle it is there's a separate trash fee. So instead of a property tax increase, I believe the previous city manager brought this up, and I think you remember some of the
They were
the
wanting
heat that
to-
brought.
yeah,
They wanted to
put it
add
on the electric bill.
or add it
Yeah.
on your bill as a trash
Yeah.
fee, and that would be the other way to cover the extra cost. But
And I thought Shelbyville
Yeah.
Power was going to be doing the one that was going to be collecting the money for it, the way it was presented back
might have
before
been, I don't
before we got
remember
the
what
blue
the
trash
mechanism
receptacle,
was. Yeah.
or just at the point the blue cans came out.
yeah,
We're talking about the power company. I don't know how that money was going to work, but they were
Yeah.
going to actually have the trash fee there, so much per can, and
Yeah.
that got
oh, that
sidekicked.
yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of public uproar over that one. So in this case, I mean, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think just my personal, just a gut feeling early on. I think at some point it's going to get approved just because of the dollars and cents.
right.
I don't think anybody has the appetite to raise taxes just so that we don't get this bill
Right.
inside the city limits. And I've actually lived, and I didn't even think about it till I was doing some of my research. I'd forgotten about it. I lived most of my growing up and adult life within a mile or two of the big waste management transfer station there in Nashville. It's actually in Antioch. It's on Antioch Pike and Franklin Limestone Road. And I
Didn't know
drove
it?
by. Well, no, I knew it was there, and you drove by it, and you're just like, man, that's a tall, ugly building with a bunch of trash trucks.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't. It didn't
Right.
ruin my life every day or anything.
Yeah.
We saw it, we drove by it. It's like, man, I'm glad my house wasn't close to it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't.
And we've taken up a lot of
So,
time talking
yeah.
about this, but I
Yeah.
think people get confused when they
Yeah.
start hearing, this is the city doing it, this is
Right.
the county doing it, or no,
Yeah.
this is a private company, but we have to pay to get rid of our trash.
Yeah, trash
And-
doesn't magically
No,
disappear. I know the little
no.
white truck shows up in your blue bin,
Yes.
it gets empty and it goes
Yes.
away, but that costs money.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And it's got to go somewhere down the line until it ends up in a landfill. So, so that's we spent a lot of time on that, but that was the big item at pre-play. Now, a couple other things that were there just to be mentioned. Duxon, who the grand opening is still coming up in a week or two. They're already doing just a minor addition there, which isn't actually to the building. They're paving the area. If you've ever driven by there or seen any of the pictures there, there's like a tank farm where the
Yeah.
chemicals sit outside. They're going to pave the area kind of behind and around there because they found that they need storage for empty canisters of chemicals coming or going, and they need to have a paved area to put that on. They don't want to just put those on grass or gravel or whatever's back there now. So that had to go in front of pre-planning because you're paving an additional area that affects your stormwater runoff and all that. So
Yeah.
that'll eventually end up in front of the Planning Commission as well. There was a piece of property that just literally got rezoned on Dover Street from R1 to R2. It's now which was the reason for doing it, they're going to separate that into 4 separate parcels. It was previously a big parcel that had one house and, like a garage
Right.
and stuff. They're going to put 4 smaller houses, but it's still R2 zoning, which
Right.
is well within the surrounding area. There's a lot of R3 over there, so
Sure.
it's not a big deal. And then there was some discussion of 9 townhomes at the intersection of Sevier Street and West Cedar Street. There was nothing big about that I can remember on the discussion of that. So that was Monday. We're just into Monday.
Yeah.
Tuesday was the monthly county commission meeting. They adopted some updated building codes. They had 2 rezonings, which we've not seen a lot of those
Not
at the
much.
county level. So planning commission have been a yes and a no. The county commissioners voted unanimously to just follow the planning commission. There was really no discussion. Just a little side note, they voted to approve the county highway roads list, which it doesn't need to be approved.
It's been that way.
It
is what it
gets
is.
presented every year. That you can't not approve it. I mean,
Right.
what are you gonna do? Nah,
No.
we don't approve. What are we gonna
No.
do? Shut all the county roads down? I mean, so they had a vote and approved it, but it really they were just
There's some things about government that just make you go, huh?
well, that was the same one
Yeah.
they had the debate on at the about the bylaws where they didn't want to have to run it through the rules committee.
Yeah.
They changed the bylaws to where it didn't say anything about the rules committee, and they still put it through the rules committee this year, and they still approved it this year. And there's
Okay.
none of that. All that needs to happen is the county highway superintendent presents that to the county commission. It gets not approved. I mean, accepted might be the right
Yeah.
word. It has to be on the minutes of one of their
Right,
meetings during
right.
the year is the only thing that
State-
needs to happen. with
it's a
that.
state
It's
issue.
a law,
Yeah.
yeah. So, the big thing we talked about going into this last week was quarterly reports. We were wondering how many people were going to show up this time because normally we get 3 or 4. This was the biggest
Big
number
one.
I can
Big
remember in a
turnout.
while.
Almost a little bit
Big
more than
turnout.
half.
More than half
Yeah.
now, and we'll get to the half
Okay.
part of it. There were 9 on the list. 5 of them showed up: the county clerk, the schools, highway superintendent, register of deed, and trustee. One item of note: there used to be 10 on this list until this quarter. We used to get an economic development report, and that has fallen off the list. So
Yeah, a lot of things.
a lot of things have gone on in that area,
area,
but
yeah.
that didn't even make the list as somebody not to show up. It was completely removed.
We don't have
so.
economic development anymore.
Oh, well, we are, something. we won't go there at the moment. We've got a lot of other stuff to cover. So, for the county clerk, nothing crazy in that report. On the schools report, which we'd heard this already, the schools got their grades from last year. They grade the schools just like they do the students now. 4 of our schools were an A, 2 were a B, 5 C's, and 3 D's. Overall, they have a different words, different levels for the whole school
Yeah.
system. We got advancing, which is 1 below the top level, which is the highest we've ever scored as a county. So that was good. So we're
Moving
advancing
in the right
means we're
direction,
moving
yeah.
in the right direction. I guess we're not quite there, but we're at least headed there. So that part was good.
Yeah, we had Dr. Garrett on a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
she was giving us the details on this.
Of which schools were
Right.
which, yeah, and you can watch
Yeah, we
watch
go
your
back and watch
interview,
that.
or you can go back and watch the county. I'm not going to read off all those schools. Highway superintendent report. They added a sign department recently where they print their own road signs now. And I didn't even think of this, but apparently people like to drive around the county and steal the road
Yeah.
signs. Basically, a big chunk of the roads had no signs on them out in the
Oh,
county.
I know. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
at one time, they were painting them on the roads. I
That-
think that fell apart, didn't it?
They've not mentioned that. That was going to be the big initiative, was paint them on the road,
Yeah.
and that's kind of fallen off. So instead, they got their own sign printer, and
Good.
they've already put signs back on 309 roads where the signs had mysteriously disappeared or more likely were stolen. So they're in the process of putting it
I
back.
got
Now,
a
is it
plan.
whack-a-mole? Are they
I
going to go
got-
back and steal the same 309? And we're gonna
I've got
keep
a
printing
plan.
them? Okay, all right,
Hey, but Mark Clanton would have to implement this.
yeah.
Electric road signs. Touch the sign.
Oh, you
a
get
jolt.
zapped. Yeah, if it could work together with Duck River
Car
or
battery.
something.
Car battery.
Oh, just a car battery. Okay, just a little
puddle
jolt.
of water.
Okay, all right.
no,
well,
no road sign.
well, we'll
theft.
see. For the moment, there are more road signs out in the county than there's been in years because we're printing them ourselves, and they've replaced 309 of them. So
I know there's a lot of people that'll be glad to see the road sign back up.
Well, yeah,
Seriously.
sure, yeah. I mean, you get out there, and I mean, you're kind of following Google Maps or whatever, but you're like, is that my road
Is
or
that
not?
it?
And
Yeah.
if you don't have a sign, you don't know what the name of the road is. So. In addition to signs, they do other things in the highway other than signs. They so far this year, and I'm going to assume this is fiscal year and not calendar year, since we're only 2 weeks into the year. But they've paved 7 roads and 5 railroad crossings out in the county. They bought a traffic counter. They're going to start measuring traffic on certain roads to decide what the volume is, I guess, to decide which roads are more heavily used. They can decide which ones need paved first. But before they actually use it on any roads, they're actually testing it. They've set it up at, or
Yeah.
going to set up at some of the
Seen
convenience
those,
centers, and they're going to count traffic coming and going to also kind of see
The
how many
traffic
people are
flow,
coming and going
yeah.
in convenience centers. So another big thing they're doing, and I saw this is on an upcoming agenda as well. They're about to adjust the speed limits on all the county roads. I believe 45 is currently the magic number, maybe out in the county. And they realize 45 is good on, say, Fairfield Pike. But if you've got a neighborhood road, and in particular a neighborhood road that dead ends, you don't want some
45,
guy
no.
flying down there at 45 and then hitting a dead end.
Yeah.
So there's going to be different levels of speed limits down the county, which there had not been. It had all been basically 45. I think I saw on the agenda coming up, I want to say 30 for like a local neighborhood road, and maybe even 20 or 25 on a road that dead ends or is about to dead end. So,
Okay.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
It does.
yeah. Register of Deeds gave his report. Nothing crazy there. Trustee, this is always my favorite financial report on the county. That it only comes out once a quarter. But this is the real dollars and cents. This is how much the county's sitting with in the bank at that given time. Side note that she gave us before she actually got into the numbers was the county just signed a new contract with a bank. She didn't mention at the time, but I've seen the contract is with Pinnacle. And they now are receiving the Fed funds rate as interest on all their money in the bank account. So it's one of these sweep accounts where I guess, and I don't understand all the mechanisms of these,
Yeah.
but the money magically gets swept out at night and then sweeps back in.
Yeah,
and all that.
it's moving from a higher interest paying to
Right.
a more serviceable
Right.
managing account. So
Yeah,
it's back and forth.
but the key to the whole thing is they end up with a higher interest rate. In the past, you would take the Fed funds rate and then you would subtract off a percentage and get to a lower rate, and that's what they would get. This time they're just getting the straight Fed funds rate, which is going to help them on money coming in. And you get good interest when you have numbers like these. The end of this report covered through the end of calendar year 2024. And as of December 31st, the county had $136.45 million in the bank. So that should pay pretty good interest, you would think.
Yep.
The account that is the one up for discussion in the whole brouhaha between the city and the county, which is the debt service
Right.
account, currently was sitting at we'll call it $56.5 million at the end of the year. So that balance has been, steadily climbing. And then the actual dollars of the sales tax was also in this report, which I found interesting. So for the months of September, October, November, the 0.75% sales tax, which is again part of that whole back and forth between the city and county, the dollar amount for 3 months was $1.54 million, all of which is going into that debt service account currently. If things were to change and it were split in half of that would be $770,000
That's in
over
case
3
that
months.
the city won the lawsuit. They're basically telling what it would be
Well, they were doing this report
before.
yeah. Otherwise, I'm just actually reading out the numbers this time. Yeah, this had been on every trustee report I'd seen. But yeah, that would be the dollar figure that we were talking about in this particular 3 months was $770,000. That's up for discussion in the court system currently. So Thursday, real quick, because I think we're probably already running long. 3 different meetings went on. I spent a little bit of time at each of them. There was a TDOT staff meeting. There was a school board meeting, and then there was a BZA meeting, which BZA was the city BZA. As far as TDOT met with our city staff and the developer of the new Remington Farms possible coming development. Last week I mentioned that I thought there would be some news this week that we would be able to share on it. Not as much happened as I thought was going to happen. We'd heard a lot more rumors behind the scenes. None of that has come up yet, so we can't talk about that. But what did happen at the one meeting they had, the TDOT got on with the city staff again, the developer, and TDOT held firm on their requirement that they had since last year, which is that development is would cause a deterioration of traffic quality, we'll call it, on Union Street, all the way from the development, all the way to Colorado. So all of those major intersections, Cloverdale, Jennings Lane, Green Hills, Mack Street, TDOT's position, and it's also the position that the city staff had been holding, is that the developer would need to fix those intersections, and there's different fixes, but mainly it's adding turn lanes.
What? Yeah. You're going to have to widen.
Going to have to widen it in sections. Yeah. At the entrance to the development, also at 70% build out, they would also have to put a traffic signal. So, and then the other big thing was the actual intersection of Colorado and Union Elm Street has to be widened, and that
is a jam.
That's a mess. So that would require right-of-way acquisition. That would require moving utilities. That would require changing that traffic signal. So you're talking, and nobody had a dollar figure, but I'm just a wild guess that you're talking a multi-million-dollar project at that intersection.
You're talking about affecting some businesses right there.
Yeah,
you've got the barbershop, you've got a little restaurant, you've got the convenience store, you've got a new liquor store.
You got all that on right on that intersection. So that unlike the other intersections, the developer wouldn't necessarily have to cover all of that cost, but the expectation would be that there would be a negotiation between the developer and the city, and the developer would have to bear at least a decent percentage of that cost. So, because they're not the only ones causing that traffic problem, but if you look at the traffic study, they are exacerbating the problem by quite a bit. Particularly those other intersections, the city engineer, I believe, mentioned that they were causing like a 200% plus degradation in the amount of time that you would have to sit at those intersections to make a turn or whatever.
The way it sits right now, the development that's already taken place out there and the expansion of population in that area has already created a problem that needs to be dealt with.
Yes.
I mean, you live there.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't
I see it in the afternoon.
The closer you get to town, the worse each street coming into the main flow of 41A, the longer the wait is, the closer you get to town.
Yeah.
And then the traffic light, you see how it backs up.
It backs way up. So, and then in the afternoon, it's the other direction. It's people heading back to their houses, and so it's already a mess. But if they allow this development, they want them to fix it because they're enough of a change that the mess gets much messier.
Yes.
So, so that's TDOT's position. That seemed to be the city staff's position. So it is currently sitting, and we'll get into the upcoming week in a minute, but it's currently sitting on the agenda again for the Planning Commission this Thursday. So we'll see,
Josh, I think
how they present
this is just my opinion, and I know this turns into an opinion show a lot.
We have a lot of opinions.
But I, honestly, until that bypass gets built, and attaches around the 231
Right.
until that gets built to pull some of the traffic that's just going through town or around town to go north. I think it's going to be hard to approve any high density developments in that area until that takes place.
Until they
Even
fix-
if you start looking at widening lanes now, you're just helping the problem that already exists. But when you start throwing that many people in that area that's going to come in all that direction,
Right.
that bypass is critical, I think.
That, and also, honestly, I mean, again, they're just going to fix, like you said, a couple intersections. In reality, probably Union Street from wherever it narrows there at Piggly Wiggly all the way out, at least to Union Station, if not out Bethel.
Right.
At some point, it needs to go from 2 lanes to 4 or 5. You know.
Yeah, and this is a state issue at this point.
Yeah, if they widen the whole road, that would be a state issue.
And the bypass is a state issue. And the way I understand it, it's 10 years away still.
Oh, and it's not even on the 10-year plan.
It's not even there.
Yeah,
So
it's
gone.
not even
Okay.
on it. It's kind of fallen off.
All right, so it's going to be hard for us to develop in that area
right
with this issue. Developers are going to come up against these issues no matter what they do going forward, if it's any number. So,
yeah,
I mean,
and the developers' pushback to TDOT was, if you make us do all this work, then the development's no longer viable. But
that's
I
the
mean,
way
that's
it is.
they're causing the traffic issue to get worse to a point that maybe it's not.
Even if it were
viable.
just all R1, Josh, it would still make a big impact.
Still
out
make a
there.
mess.
Yeah.
So so
All right.
So we'll see Thursday what happens on that. Just a couple of things at those meetings that week. School board, nothing too crazy, but I did notice something I found interesting on there. They approved a basketball court projection system for community high school. So this is like, have you ever been to, and I've never seen this at basketball, but if you go to the Preds games, they have the ice. They got the projector showing down the ice. So when the players come out, they can show their pictures and videos. So they're going to have this at the high school basketball game. When your players come out, they can show video on the floor of the
Okay,
of the
who's
gymnasium.
paying? Is this paid
Not
for?
paid for by taxpayers. Yeah, real clear.
It's-
This was somebody had this idea
Right.
to bring this to community. They went out and got a bunch of businesses, got their money together,
Okay.
and pulled $25,000, gave it to the school system, and they're going to put this in. So
Okay.
this will be a neat.
So
would be a neat
basically,
thing
all
to
they
see.
need, can we install this in
Yeah,
the
they're
building?
just
And
asking.
that's all it
Yeah,
was.
they were
So,
just
yeah.
asking. Yeah, there's no expense to taxpayers, no expense to the school
That'll be
system.
interesting.
So
I know
that'll be-
Coach Davis will be excited to have that. Out there.
Yeah, because I don't
Nobody
think
else has
we've
got
that
anything
anywhere
like
else
that.
in the
I've
county, do
never
we?
seen that in high school.
No, I've never seen that at high school sports, so that'll be cool. And then another thing at the school board, just because I had caught this last month, and it continues to be the case. I don't know what's going on with attendance, but again, in this month's attendance report, we are still down 28 students from this time last year. So again, this is just, a couple of small attendance reports, but is this the canary in the coal mine that something's going on with our growth magically all of a sudden? Is this a shift in where kids are being educated? What's going on? It's unusual that we've had.
Are you asking me this question, or are you just
I'm just
rhetorical?
kind of rhetorical, but if you have any insight on it, I'd be curious
I
because
don't want to dig into it here because
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
It gets
Well,
into, but I have a theory that you're going to see some of this slow down in certain areas of the country. I think other areas of the country will fluctuate up based on migrants, immigration issues.
It might be an immigration thing, but it's just unusual that we have forever been here and we're getting 100 new kids a year, 100 new kids a year, 1,000 new people a year moving to the county, this and that. And then here, somewhere that we actually have a measurable number, which is number of kids in our school system, it's actually trended down.
There's a new sheriff in Washington come Monday.
There is. That could be part of it. I don't know. So, but the current number, just because it was given in the attendance report, 9,031 students, and that's including pre-K. So that's pre-K through 12. That is down a tick from last year.
Josh, we are still so much bigger in our school population than other counties our size. It's unbelievable how much. We're in some cases 30-40% higher. When you get in a county with a similar population, our student count is extremely high.
It's extremely high.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah.
I did a study on that about 3 years ago, and it was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You look at the surrounding counties that are similar.
Right.
Okay. It was some of them we've doubled. We've got twice as many.
Twice as
It's
many with the same
unbelievable.
population.
Yeah.
Well,
not the same population, but
or
close.
similar, yeah. And I mean, that's another thing we've talked about, I think, as well. And I know the city they talked about doing a special census, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen at this point. But those census/population numbers that they give out for the city and the county, nobody feels like those are accurate numbers here. Like, we didn't get good reporting, and we've got a lot more people, I think, in the city than we're told on the census or the federal numbers that we get. So, yeah. But I just found it interesting that, again, we always hear growth. We're getting more kids, we're getting more of this, in an actual measurable way for at least the last couple of months. And so far this school year, we're actually down in students.
In the last 2 years, there were really explosions, specifically out of Shelby Central High School.
Yeah.
I mean, they during the Christmas break last year, they had 80 kids come in. It was unbelievable. I mean, just all of a sudden.
And we've still got months left in the school year. We could get to the end of the school year and we could be up, but it's just happens.
I think this is just a new trend.
Yeah, it might be. So we'll keep an eye on that. But other than that, there was a BZA meeting. I went to it. It ended up, after a ton of discussion, they ended up deciding that this business didn't even need a zoning exemption, and they were good to just go on about their way. It was an old convenience store gas station that had already was, and I only caught part of this discussion, so I'm not going to mention address. I don't even remember it, but they were not currently, I think, using it as a gas station, just a convenience store, but they're going to allow them, I believe, to go ahead and put gas back in there because it's, it was grandfathered in.
All right. It's been there for years.
Been there for forever.
Yeah.
So, and with that pretty much covers most of the big things that I went to this week.
There's a comment. A question. Steve Jordan. It's good to see Steve this morning.
Hey,
Thanks
Steve.
for watching. He's talking about a lithium battery plant in California. There's a concern for toxic elements. I think that's a concern here if something was to happen, if and when it becomes fully operational. So we've discussed this for the last 2 years about the toxic. And he's talking about the Duxan Electris plant, the electrolytes and all that. We've done a breakdown of what's going to be there, what possibly could happen. We've talked about the evacuation plans. We've talked about all this. And yes, there still exists that problem if it gets fully operational. And they've been approved by the state with their suppression system and the water flow. They got to go ahead now to open up, and that's happening. Their grand opening is the 29th.
January 29th. Now the key to this, and we get this a lot, and we posted some of these news articles. The ones that the big fires that we've seen, we saw one in Korea, I believe. We saw one or two in the U.S. Those were battery facilities. They had complete finished batteries there. We won't have the battery at this. This is, even though some people have called this a battery plant, it's not a battery plant. This is just the component chemical that goes inside the battery, which, again, I'm not saying it's any better or worse than the battery plant because I don't know enough about all of the chemicals to know. We put out that information as far as, there's different, you got a SDS for different chemicals that gives you the labeling and as far as toxicity and all that. But the fires that we've seen have been at completed batteries. There was one that I believe the most recent one was they recycled lithium-ion batteries.
Right. So they were destroying those.
Yeah, they were destroying the batteries. And so this, even though it's often called a battery plant, it's not a battery plant. It's just the component chemical. So whether or not that is as, likely...
I think the biggest question I think we had coming in, if there were a fire there, not necessarily caused by the chemicals themselves, but what happens when those chemicals burn and the fumes from it.
Right.
That's been the biggest issue.
And that's why they did the safety plan and had the safety meeting and everything with the surrounding businesses. So
it's two different animals. Because a battery is pressurized, it has a charge to it. You have a circuit there, and there can be explosions when not handled properly, and so on and so forth. That's a whole different hazard than what we've got.
Yeah, and this, and again, I've obviously not seen inside, although I'm going to the grand opening. I don't know if they're going to give tours or not. We'll find out. But the part of the system in the factory that we have is there's actually, and I believe, I want to say nitrogen is piped in all the way through the process, other than when they load on the truck and it leaves. And that keeps oxygen away from the chemicals in any way, shape, or form. And obviously, if you know anything about fire, if it doesn't have oxygen, it doesn't burn. So that's part of the suppression mechanism that keeps the safety, hopefully, knock on wood.
I'm quite sure the Duxan executives don't want to lose their building. They don't want to have a fire.
They would prefer not to burn.
Yeah,
so,
all right. Yeah, that's a good thing, not to burn.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest issue that came up in this whole topic of the Duxan plant was not necessarily the hazards per se, but the facts on the front end versus the tail end, how they changed from when we were misled to believe that this
Right.
was a battery plant on the
Yeah.
start end to we're going to employ 200 and something, and that communication went through a lot of people before it got to the people that made decisions, and I think that's been the biggest controversy about our plant.
Right.
And that's it. And
Yes.
now that's over with. They're opening, and now we just pray it don't burn.
We pray it don't burn, and I'm still on the fence is if this is the technology that carries forward for the next 20 years in the world of batteries, or it does some new technology come on board and suddenly you don't even need this electrolyte.
Right.
So
I think the hydrogen fuel is coming pretty fast on the tail end of a lot of these EVs.
Or solid state.
Yes.
We keep hearing solid state battery. This, don't know if they're going to have the breakthrough
And
there.
Steve, he says he feels that it's going to happen sooner or later. That plant will become operational at some point. I don't think it's a good thing. Well,
it's going to be
late.
operational.
It's operational.
It may be
soon.
operational now,
and
honestly.
all those things have been discussed, and it's happening. And I agree. I think our biggest issue for a fire would be the jail, not having a place to evacuate the jail. But that's already been talked about a lot. I know we're going to jump ahead and talk about next week. But before we do, let's have hear a word from our sponsor, Dennis Young Insurance.
Dennis Young, yes.
And we'll be right back, and you can fill us in on what's coming up.
Absolutely.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 19...
All righty, welcome back to the weekend wrap up, and we're fixing to wrap up. And Josh, you're going to tell us what's happening this week.
I'm going to tell you what's happening this week. This is not anything on my official rundown, but this is Josh Goes to School week. The state is going to train me on how to be an elected official. So I'm going to miss my normal Tuesday meeting that we'll talk about in a minute because I've got Elected Officials Academy. So I'm going to know so much more come next Saturday.
Do you get a diploma?
Probably a certificate.
A certificate?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, bring it and show it to us.
If I get a certificate, if I
okay.
get certified as an elected official. So yeah,
Okay.
this is a 7.5 hour training by MTAS. So I'll let you know next Saturday.
All right.
What it takes to be an elected
I'm
official.
anxious to hear that report.
I know that'll be exciting. I know you're looking forward to it. But as far as actual meetings, there's 2 big meetings on the agenda, one county, one city, Tuesday night. This is the county commission committee meetings. This is the same Tuesday every month. Glanced over the agendas, didn't get that deep, but the thing that jumped out at me, and I've already had some talks with some people on this, there is at the rules committee the opportunity for them to move on to the county commission a private act which would establish a Bedford County wastewater authority. So I don't know exactly what they're looking to accomplish or what the end goal is, but this would be just what it sounds like, a county wastewater authority that would be over, sewer, I'm assuming step systems, whatever, out in the county, outside the city limits where there's not currently sewer system. So I don't know if they're just looking to regulate step systems that might come in with new development. I don't know if they're actually looking at possibly adding any kind of wastewater treatment plan and putting sewer out in parts of the county. So we know nothing about it other than that it's on the agenda. So I will be, even though I won't be attending that meeting, I'll have to watch it on the YouTubes, but I'll be curious what the presentation is and why the county needs a wastewater authority.
Yeah, be interesting to see.
Be interesting to see what the sales pitch is on that one.
I think Josh, probably what it is, everybody's talking about population growth here.
Right.
And the county has faced that in the last couple of years. And
Yeah.
maybe that spurred this,
Yeah.
that there's a possibility of bigger developments coming in. You got to watch it.
And you want to have some kind of regulation around it. It may be that. So we'll find out what the pitch is on Tuesday. And then Thursday, this for me is the biggest meeting. I'm actually going to skip my last night of training to go to this meeting because this one's important. This is the City Planning Commission meeting. And this is, as long as I've been going to these over a year now, this is one of the largest agendas that I've seen. And it's got a lot of big items on them, including Remington Farms, which we've talked about. Maybe we will in a minute. But let me just list off a couple things we're looking at here. We've got a new 911 emergency communications center coming. There'll be the site plan for that. Down on Northside Park Drive and Northside Circle, which that's across from Lowe's, down in the hole over there. We've got an auto repair facility. We've got a new CrossFit gym, and then finally the Hampton Inn. So 3 big new businesses looking to go down there. There's site plans for all of those that got to be reviewed by planning. Up on the north side of town, Global Manor, 94 new lots for single-family homes up there. These are preliminary plats on those. Mead Drive, 12 more single-family lots. Idle Drive, 20 single-family lots. Clover Lane, which is to the east of Green Lane, 40 townhomes. Cedar Glade Circle, which is east of North Main, 48 townhomes. So as we've discussed, ad nauseum on the show, there's a lot of growth and a lot of no, it's not growth. What is it? We're putting more people.
We're filling it up.
We're filling it up with people. So that's a lot of new houses, a lot of new townhomes, several businesses there. And then on this agenda is the possibility, at least, that the Planning Commission could take some kind of action on Remington Farms at the old swing property behind Jostens. It's on there. Again, we talked earlier about TDOT is firm on their, conditions.
That pretty much sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that's one issue. The traffic is obviously a big issue, but there's other concerns with that development that if planning gets serious about possibly voting on it, that we'll have to have that talk. So this planning meeting could go forever. I mean, literally, we could just sit there.
Take a meal with you, Josh.
And it's actually, oddly enough, well, not oddly enough, but it's starting at an hour earlier at 5:00 with a training session on where we're going to discuss water and water withdrawal from the Duck River.
Oh, so that's another one right there.
So by the time the meeting starts at 6, and then we get into this long list, we could.
Man, y'all are just going to open up a can of worms on every
table. We're going to get into
you?
Everything. So it'll be an interesting one. If you like. Or any of those things interest you, I believe it'll be on the YouTube.
I might pop some popcorn, get my cold drink out,
and see what everybody has to say. So a lot going on in the city, a lot going on in the county, and we'll be right back here next week where I will be more educated by then after my classes. I don't know, a lot of classes. I should learn something, I hope. So, and we'll have the news that matters again right here, same time, same channel, same place, and
have a great weekend.